Good afternoon. I am BongYeol from Logpresso. Thank you so much for coming despite the pandemic. The title of the session is Automating Security Operation Process Using SOAR Technology. Looking at the market trend, the concept SOAR actually was introduced quite a long time ago in the market, and many of the clients have started adopting it or are planning to adopt it next year. Through this session, I do hope that you could better understand the concept of SOAR and overall flow and trend of SOAR. So on the screen, you can see a cool looking security operations center. So it has large screens all over the world, and a number of analysts are checking them to catch possible security threats. And also people normally actually would also come to security operations centers for field visits. So when they come in, nothing can be seen without the switch on, but once the switch is on, things in front actually would turn clear. So it's like a magic glass. So you will see something like this, maybe a scene you would see in a movie. And there will be glittering lights on the map. So it might look very impressive and they'll be very touched. But I mean, I know it looks very fancy and glittering, but what about the reality of those working here? It looks like this. This actually is a real reality for those who are in security operation and security work. They are actually overloaded with work. Why is it happening? Because, I mean, if you are to run SIM or security operation system, you deal with dozens of hundreds of gigabyte of raw data which you collect on a daily basis. So the alerts actually do occur in millions of cases, but you cannot see all of them. So you would actually adjust correlation or prioritization in order to ferret out only the significant alerts and information. And also you probably would have tickets above 100. Even if you have these, it's also not easy to look at all of the 100 because if you were to spend 10 minutes per case, you probably would have to spend 1,000 minutes. And it's like 16 hours in total. So that will require two people analyze the tickets 8 hours without any break, and then still it cannot be solved easily. So what can we do about it? So the analysis process of tickets is very tedious and challenging. So the attacks that attacked it, do they have a reputation of being risky? And if I were to block it, isn't it related to the service being operated? And are they attacking the points of vulnerability? There are a lot of considerations to be made. But this process is not so complicated, though. However, in order to solve all of these setbacks, the technology of SOAR has emerged. I'm sure that many of you understand what SOAR is. Maybe you have heard the word at least once. Security Operation Automation Response is the full name for SOAR. So security equipment are to be orchestrated to automate security response. But it has been 1 or 2 years since it was launched or the concept was introduced in the market. So maybe you have heard of what you can do with it. So in IPS or web firewalls, when alerts occur, So CTI and reputational information can be correlatedly analyzed to block IPL, for example. So maybe this much of information is something you've heard of. Maybe half of you have heard of it. So I'll not here to talk about the exact same thing today. So I'll focus on the directions forward for SOAR at this point in time. In order to do that, though, let me tell you about the current status of security organizations. As you see on the screen, they can be grouped into two types. The first one actually is the alert analyst, and the right side actually is incident responders. So alert analysts, they are in charge of initial response 24/7, 7 days a week. Try to monitor any of the alerts that would pop up to see if they're to be immediately blocked or not. So they make decisions and take responses. What about third team, CERT or CERT team? So that's when incidents occur, they are to decide, let's say some ransomware has been embedded. What kind of features does it have to cause what damage? So they will do investigation on that. And if the data is leaked through the network, for example, what kind of vulnerabilities have been targeted where hackers actually came in to take away the data we have? So endpoint forensic or network forensics might be used to investigate, to take responsive measures, make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen again. So the works of alert analysts and the works of CERT or incident responders must be well aligned, of course. However, at this point, so when I talk about the features of a SOAR platform, the focus is on the left-hand side. So the real-time monitoring of a security operation actually is taking up the big portion here for SOAR. Although I said it at the very beginning, I mean, there are a lot of alerts that are happening. So it'd be great if there could be automated workload for security operation to save a lot of human labor. However, in order to automate all the security operations, even the tasks done by third team must be automated as well. So let's take a look at the types of detecting risks. So these are the cases. These actually are the traditional ways to detect the internal leakage. For example, like unusual file copy of a large scale or internal documents, like thousands have been printed. And when you're sending email, I mean, you would attach like dozens of mega, and these will be detected because these are recognized anomalies. But according to traditional methods, MDTA or signature are used for detection. But these are not so satisfying because there are certain criteria. So there's the ceiling of criteria of 10 megabytes for alerting. But if it's sent in 9 megabytes, it's not detected. Let's say there are users who would normally copy a lot or print a lot, and still there will be false positives, so the results would not be so satisfying because it lacks in accuracy. In order to solve this problem, AI technology or AI operation technology has been applied. What it means is that instead of using a single threshold, a lot of FPs or false positives. So here AI can learn the data well. So for each endpoint or for each service, optimal thresholds can be designated by AI. So this will end up reducing FPs and also will reduce alerts to make things easier for humans. But you have to wonder, is this enough? Because what I've been talking about is just confined to the anomalous signs or anomalous signals. If there is any leakage of data, So can we make sure that the court rules that the criminal actually is guilty? Not really, because without any physical evidence that this person has leaked it, we cannot win the lawsuit. Anomaly detection business operations have been carried out by many companies, but as I told you before, anomalies can be detected, but these are just signals or signs. These are not the clues or evidence. So in order to close a task, humans must intervene to open up each file so the workload doesn't go down. This definitely must be resolved. So what are some of the examples of evidence? For example, let's say a web server was hacked. So in order for the same hacker to come again, so let's say the hacker generated a manager account or secretly installed some malware, and web service, let's say, was provided, and the page could be manipulated, for example, or on the server in order to steal away the data. These could be clustered in a single zip file and it was leaked outside. So these are the examples of evidence and these are needed. So how can we generate these types of evidence? We need to think about that. So what are the things that we definitely need? So we need to have AI forensic readiness. When I say forensic readiness, it is how well you're prepared for AI forensics. No matter when, you actually need to have infrastructure to do forensic at any time. However, the problem is that, of course, at any time, through endpoints or a network, it's very important to have forensic readiness, but there is nobody to do the analysis because there are only a few people who can do the job. But in the internal environment, there are hundreds of servers and there are thousands of endpoints. So under such circumstances, although you are well equipped with the infrastructure to do forensics, there is a shortage of labor to do the job. So AI can be mobilized here to solve the problem, to dramatically improve the security environment. So come to think about it, so what we need is this. SOAR is at the center. SOAR cannot do the job by itself because as for SIM or SIM, there is no such feature as forensic, which cannot be found in crimes. So there's CTI or EDR or NDR. These are the three factors that are to be combined together or integrated together. So whether it's endpoint or network, it could also all encompass all of those to secure visibility to be able to do forensics. So making such a structure, I think, is the most ideal architecture. But these days, there's this concept XDR that's marketed a lot. But as for XDR, it is to well package both EDR and NDR. But as for XDR, if the company did not invest too much in security environment, you might think that it would be quite convenient to just go for a single option of XDR because you're doing something out of scratch. But in many of the environments, they would already have dozens or hundreds of security solutions already well adopted and well operated. So in such an environment, you need to maximize the existing security function and automate the security. You need to definitely have SOAR at the very core. So you need to have such a structure. But in order to do that, what I'm to introduce to you now is something we are working on with LG CNS. It's LG Chem Project. Recently, CQ Expert, the brand was launched by LG CNS. And through this brand, There are 7 security specialized teams with 200 manpower working as LGCNS to install next generation security architectures here and there. When they do the job, how they configure it. I remember at the beginning, I told you that CTR, NDR, EDR, the 3 things needed for SOAR at the very center, right? So there is a platform at the center, which is Logpresso, and for NDR, RSI is readiness, and EDR, there's Tanium's EDR was designated to install next generation security architecture. So in this next generation security architecture, what is the goal here? So the thing is to change the paradigm in security, because in the conventional style of security, it was to install very strong access control. So it is to block something or anything. For example, copying the USB, no. Emailing, no, you have to keep it authenticated. So things were blocked, so pre-blocked. There are so many solutions for blocking purposes, but they had to do it that way before because there might be some unintended data leakage, and when it happens, it must be automatically identified, and without having full reassurance, it would be a better way to just block them all. However, as with the next generation architecture, without human intervention, as long as you can do automation to the point where human intervention is not needed, you don't have to block everything. So that's the concept on the right hand side, trust and verification. So it's from Russian words. You trust it, but still, I mean, you have to have the system which is verifiable. So how can this be achieved? Let me take a look at each of the components. First of all, let's talk about the NDR first of all. So you can't store everything in the packets. But these days, this traffic is well configured. So this cannot be working by itself. There's still visibility solution for decrypting must be used together. So in real time, all the packets are stored in the storage. And the readiness. So just like the sending data through the firewalls, metadata is sent in real time. And then Logpresso would receive all of these and to do the detection. So it seems like files have been sent externally. File upload is suspicious. And then for the open session, the files there are to brought in from API of readiness, and then the content of the file is analyzed. Is it internal document or not, for example? So classification is made based on that. So because it's an external document, maybe it doesn't mean much. And then it would actually be closed as clean one, close off the packet as such. But if the internal information is included, the very file is actually attached to the ticket, make sure that the security team could review it by installing such an automated system in the workflow. The same logic applies to endpoint. EDR solution is used for endpoints, for processes, registry, or DNS query. There are a lot of actions and behaviors. These can be sent as well. So all the action data is received and monitored. And if there's an incidence of data leakage, Tanium's APIs are used to bring in suspicious files. So to also classify if it's internal or external documents. So on endpoints, there are files there, of course, so it doesn't become any issue to bring those in. But networks become more complicated because editors can decode all of these, but Even if we have all the solution for decryption, we cannot actually look at the tunneling by accessing VPN. But even these sessions must be detected. So, even when the files do not actually fall into the meta nominally, you need to have AI model to see if it's the proper files or not. This top. So let's say we have 14 million sessions per day, and AI model is used for filtering, and then about 3,000 sessions will remain. So what is allowed for work must be excluded, and then it becomes like 1/10 remaining 200 sessions, and it will be grouped in endpoints, and there would actually be about 44 suspicious sessions. And then this is the amount that can be reviewed per day by the security team, but by analyzing each case. So security solution actually do a good job blocking it. Dropbox or Google Drive or Naver Band. So when you do uploading these platforms, so blocking is well underway. But in other cases, let's say a supplier engineer is doing something, and that supplier's groupware is used for file transfer or do the communication using the VPN of the supplier. So this is not the public one in communications. So these cannot be detected with signature-based or patent-based. So as for the remote setup solution, like Citrol, we actually could do the detection. A root call, of course, can be blocked, but for private ones, I mean, when private ones are used, still AI model could detect suspicious cases. So what is critical to see if it's an internal document or not? When we are using natural language model, I mean, you would assume that natural language is well processed and no problem, but in fact, there are many domain languages used in companies, a lot of very much like sophisticated words. So when you actually are putting these in for machine learning, so it's exactly like entering the patterns, very, very tedious. But here with Logpresso model, they don't have to manually type this in for learning. So only the key documents in the company can be well indexed. So they when they are sent through the network, there's comparison with the existing files that were sent through the network. And if there's a similarity, these are also detected and notified in this AI system. So Playbook is where everything can be all comprehensively reviewed. So readiness Playbook is one example here, net witness. Let's say there are some sessions or suspicious as uploads, and the tickets will occur. In order to download a file from net witness, you need to have session ID. So 5 TP must be had to query the session IDs, and you have to have session IDs to download the files. And then, as I told you before, the types of the files must be classified if it's a PowerPoint, or Word, or Excel, or a PDF. And to extract the text there, to see if this is similar with the internal documents of the company, and have it attached as evidence, or to close tickets as been completed. All of this can be configured on Playbook. So you have to develop it? No. So Tenium or net witness in these Logopress solution can be installed to configure this workflow. So what are expected outcome, which is twofold. One, as I told you before, it is not just blocking anything. Information that is going out or flowing out can be all detected automatically. So there is higher productivity for staff and for the security team. I mean, although authentication was in the past, but blocking it all, but then they didn't feel so much reassured because there might be some false positive. But then this actually can effectively do security control. So Logpresso Maestro is playing very pivotal roles here, which actually is very distinguishable from other SOAR solutions. We collaborate with domestic vendors to develop APIs beforehand. If you come to Logopress site, you can see what tasks are supported in what app and what scenarios can be all configured. So you can see how well we are prepared. So if you're to align the APIs which are not aligned, I would say Python scripting, they think it must be done. Many of the companies do say that. But coding is not something anybody can do. So of course that can be one option, but even with Logopress query, all of these can be well aligned together. So even if you cannot do developing, this API can be well aligned. Third, so very powerful investigation can be done. So all the available SOAR solutions didn't start from SIM. So these SOARs were exclusively developed, but Logopress one, the strong performance of query engines are well integrated into Logpresso solution. So about 300 more query commands can be utilized. So very complicated analysis can be done. So existing source solutions, I mean, they support forensics, but for example, joining with other data to generate outcome, I mean, this kind of stuff cannot be done. So, but Logpresso Maestro is strong enough to provide a very strong performance, and digital forensic can be made. So this is another distinguisher compared to other brands. So at the end of the day, to exchange all the content, that is the domain of forensics. Although I'll talk about it later. So this is the app ecosystem. 20 plus apps at home and abroad are being supported by Logopress. For example, in CTI, I mean, Virus Total and Ally.com might be used. Well, yeah, Sparrow's criminal IP and some of the domestic CPI services are integrated to be provided. As for firewalls, FortiGate, Palo2 definitely are used. Palo Alto, and also Xgate firewall, and some other domestic firewalls are supported. And not just firewalls, and also in the field of vulnerability diagnosis. And SSR Solid Stab is used a lot. And also that APIs can be also aligned. So vulnerability diagnosis can be done remotely using our solution. So all of these apps are also supported or provided. I told you a little bit about SOAR tasks. In the past, there were so many tools that the SOAR team had to be aware of. So So there are some tools actually for integrated forensic tools, but many of the forensic tools are PC-based. Encase, X-Ways, or Magnet, Axiom are some of the forensic tools available in the market, but they're not acting in the big data environment. They are in operation in PC. And not just that, they do not provide all the demanded features. So you also need to install the tools to analyze different artifacts, which is very complicated. But as for Logpresso, whether it's Windows or Linux or whatnot, all the forensic artifacts are analyzed. As for general SOAR or SIM vendors, registry or history database of register cannot be read. But even for Linux equipment, we don't have to use Windows API and still extracting and interpreting data. So you can see all sorts of forensic artifacts can be analyzed. There are 26 plus forensic artifacts that are supported by Linux. As I told you before, in order to figure out if the servers have been breached, to see what files have been opened, what network sessions were breached or opened, if there's any new making of user account, you need to check these out. And in this course, Logopress agent provides all of these features, and also for dashboard. So this is one example you can make with Maestro. As for the existing SOAR solutions, when you have SOAR as a single one, it doesn't support all of the complicated features. So just to readjust the predefined widget, but on this screen, you can also only extract YOI. So you're not actually making dashboard. You can just bring in the API, calling the app API without collecting data separately. You don't just do visualization and text values and cell values. When you click them, still these also can be drilled down. So this is another very distinctive point of Logpresso solution. So let me give you features of the apps and close my presentation. So it's aligned with Tanium's idea. You access Tanium's web console. So this is the Tanium Web's screenshot. So there's what is called live response. You can browse files on endpoints in real time, collect files remotely, all the events, or the data that is stacked there, all of these actually can be analyzed. You can do so by accessing Tanium's web console, but also you can actually run automated analysis and perform evidence file collection. So you can collect evidence file using Logopress Playbook and analyze endpoint information in the Logopress query window. So you don't have to log into Tanium's. So as for FileEye, maybe the same logic applies here. In order to respond to APT attacks, you need to install FileEye equipment, but unfortunately, you actually install responders against APT and then collect the logs and let it just operate by itself. But if you think about the definition of APT is advanced person threat, it means that maybe APT can block the current one, but the next thread cannot be blocked. So sandbox-based solutions maybe can bypass if you do program it actually to go beyond the set threshold in timing. So the IPs and domains, health information can be extracted and have them registered at intrusion indicators, so that in the future, even if ATP actually has missed it, based on its common ITC, the detection rate could go up. But in order for a human being to do it, it might be very tedious work because they have to go into FireEye, and for each alert, they have to download a file for each of the phishing attachment and then see the report and make a blacklist for IPs on the SIM. And this is not the work you can do every day. But humans are not doing it. So it has actually Playbook work on it. So it actually automates the work by itself and also configure all the Playbook scenarios. So all of these features are provided by Logpresso Maestro. It'd be great to use all the features, but depending on the situation, you might think that we only need integrated we only need integrated operation. So we have subdivided into different types. So Logpresso standard for SOAR and DFIR, and Logpresso Sonar for SIM, and Logpresso standard for log management. Lastly, there's Logopress Mini. So this actually is a digital forensic tool. It's a free version. Let's just hide file, or event file, or browser history file. What is in JetBlue engine, the data there. History database in Chrome. There are a lot of forensic artifacts. So using this mini tool, you can analyze all of these. Because this is a free version, so this is a tool for command query. But if you're working for the third team, this will be a nice tool for you to do different applications. All right, so thank you so much for listening. And if you're planning to adopt SOAR solution next year, we have Logopress booth outdoors. CA7 is the number. If you have any questions or comments, you can actually come to us and we'll give you answers. Thank you for listening.